The vacuum of space stretched endlessly beyond the cockpit of the Defiant, broken only by the distant glow of New Haven's twin suns. Captain Sarah Reaper Chen adjusted her flight suit's cooling system and took another sip of what the quartermaster generously called coffee. 3 hours into her patrol route, the most exciting thing she'd encountered was a debris field from an old mining operation. "Control, this is Reaper 1. Sector 77 is clean, moving to..." Her words died as her long-range sensors erupted in a cascade of contacts. The display screen filled with red dots, so many that they began to overlap, creating angry crimson smears across her tactical readout. What the hell? Chen's fingers danced across her console, cycling through sensor modes, praying it was a malfunction. The computer's synthesized voice confirmed her worst fears. Contact classification: Zephyrian Battle Fleet. Ship count: 847 vessels. Estimated time to New Haven orbital space: 4 hours, 17 minutes. Chen's blood turned to ice water in her veins. 847 ships. The entire Terran Defense Force barely had 200 vessels spread across 12 systems. This wasn't a raid or a skirmish. This was an extinction event. Her fingers found the emergency beacon almost by instinct. Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is Captain Chen, patrol vessel Defiant. Massive Zephyrian fleet inbound to New Haven. I repeat, massive hostile fleet bearing 27 Mark IV 800+ contacts. The response from New Haven Control crackled through the comm with barely contained panic. Reaper 1, confirm contact count. Did you say 800? Affirmative, Control. 847 vessels and counting. Where's our defense grid? A pause that lasted an eternity. Grid's down for scheduled maintenance, Reaper 1. Main capacitors are offline for another 6 hours minimum. Nearest reinforcements are the Yorktown Battle Group, 72 hours out at maximum burn. Chen closed her eyes and did the math. That would haunt her nightmares, if she lived long enough to have them. 50,000 civilians on New Haven, no planetary defenses, no fleet support. Just her? One modified interceptor with enough ammunition for maybe 30 enemy contacts if she was incredibly lucky and impossibly accurate. The Zephyrians were methodical killers, known throughout human space for their precise formations and overwhelming firepower. They didn't negotiate. They didn't take prisoners. They arrived, they conquered, and they moved on, leaving nothing but glassed worlds in their wake. Her tactical display updated as the alien fleet resolved into clearer contacts, dreadnoughts, battle cruisers, carrier groups with fighter complements that outnumbered her ammunition count by orders of magnitude. The Defiant was a gnat preparing to face a hurricane. Reaper 1, you are ordered to withdraw to minimum safe distance and await reinforcements. Control transmitted, though the operator's voice carried no conviction. Chen stared at the incoming fleet, then at the small blue dot representing New Haven. Somewhere down there, children were playing in parks, families were having dinner, people were living their lives, completely unaware that death was racing toward them at a significant fraction of the speed of light. Negative, Control. Someone needs to buy time for evacuation. Sarah, don't be insane, that's an entire fleet. What can one ship possibly do? Chen's hands moved to her weapon controls, charging the Defiant's plasma cannons and missile systems. Her modified interceptor was fast, maneuverable, and packed enough firepower to seriously inconvenience a cruiser. Against 800 ships, it was laughably inadequate. Against the alternative of doing nothing while innocents died, it was everything. Control, patch me through to the evacuation coordinator. They need to start moving people now. Every transport, every cargo hauler, every ship that can hold atmosphere needs to be loading passengers. The civilian evacuation will take 12 hours minimum. Then they better start with the children and work fast. Chen's voice carried a finality that cut through the static. I'll buy what time I can. Her sensor array painted the approaching fleet in devastating detail. The Zephyrians flew in perfect geometric formations, their ships spaced with mathematical precision. Beautiful, in a way, like watching the universe's most deadly ballet. At the fleet's heart, she could make out the massive command vessel, easily, 3 times the size of a human dreadnought, its hull bristling with weapons that could crack a moon. The enemy fleet was close enough now for direct communication. A transmission request appeared on her console, marked with Zephyrian military identification codes. Chen accepted it, and her main screen filled with the angular, chitinous features of a Zephyrian admiral. His four eyes regarded her with something that might have been curiosity. "Human vessel, you are significantly outmatched. I am Fleet Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Dominion. Surrender your ship and provide navigational data for your colony. Compliance will result in swift termination rather than prolonged suffering." Chen activated her own transmission, making sure her face was clearly visible to the alien commander. "Admiral Kethvar, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. I have a counter-proposal for you." The Zephyrian's mandibles clicked, and what she'd learned was their equivalent of amusement. "I am curious to hear the desperate bargain of a lone pilot." Chen's lips pulled back in a predatory smile that had earned her the call sign Reaper during the Proxima incident. "Come and take it." The transmission cut to static. Chen's hands moved across her controls with practiced efficiency, bringing her ship to full combat readiness. Weapons hot, shields at maximum, engines prepped for maneuvers that would either save lives or kill her trying. Behind her, New Haven hung in space like a blue and white marble, beautiful and fragile and utterly defenseless. Ahead of her, 847 alien warships closed distance with mechanical inevitability. The Defiant's computer chimed softly. "Captain, based on current tactical parameters, probability of mission success is 0.001%. Recommend immediate withdrawal." Chen's finger hovered over the engine controls. One push would send her racing away from the fleet at maximum burn, following protocol, preserving her ship and her life for the theoretical greater good. She looked at New Haven one more time. "Computer, log entry. Captain Sarah Chen, patrol. Vessel Defiant, engaging superior enemy force in defense of New Haven colony. If anyone finds this recording..." She paused, then shrugged. "Tell them we gave the bastards a fight they'll remember." She slammed the throttle forward, and the Defiant leaped toward the alien armada like an arrow shot at the stars. The Defiant screamed through space toward the Zephyrian fleet, its engines pushed beyond recommended parameters. Chen's hands moved across her controls with the fluid grace of a pianist, making micro-adjustments that kept her ship dancing through the void like a leaf in a hurricane. Her first targets materialized on the tactical display, a screen of 12 scout vessels, sleek and deadly, arranged in a perfect hexagonal formation 50,000 kilometers ahead of the main fleet. Standard Zephyrian doctrine, predictable, methodical, and about to become very, very dead. Computer display enemy formation analysis. The AI's holographic projection showed the scout screen in 3 dimensions, complete with projected weapon arcs and optimal approach vectors. Chen studied it for exactly 3 seconds, then dismissed it with a wave of her hand. Screw optimal approach vectors. Instead of coming in along the expected attack corridor, a clean run that would minimize her exposure to enemy fire, Chen rolled the Defiant 90 degrees and dove beneath the ecliptic plane. The Zephyrian scouts maintained their formation, their sensors tracking her movement but their weapons unable to achieve firing solutions on such an erratic target. Chen smiled grimly. Aliens always expected humans to fight like rational beings. They were about to learn better. She pulled the ship into a spiraling climb that brought her up behind the leftmost scout, her plasma cannons cycling to full charge. At 3,000 kilometers, point-blank range in space combat, she opened fire. Twin beams of superheated plasma tore through the scout's shields and hull like tissue paper. The Zephyrian vessel exploded in a brilliant flash of venting atmosphere and molten metal. The remaining 11 scouts immediately pivoted to engage, their formation shifting with mechanical precision. Chen was already gone, diving back toward the asteroid field that marked the edge of the New Haven system. Behind her, enemy plasma bolts and missile trails painted brilliant lines across the darkness. Computer, damage report. Minor scoring. To aft armor plating. Shields at 93%. All systems nominal. Chen grinned. The Zephyrians shot where she was, not where she was going. another predictable habit that was about to get them killed. She threaded the needle between two tumbling asteroids, each one easily the size of a city block. The pursuing scouts tried to follow in formation, unwilling to break their tactical cohesion even in the face of changing circumstances. Chen watched her rear display as the lead scout clipped an asteroid with its starboard wing. The impact sent both the ship and the rock spinning, and the perfectly maintained formation collapsed into chaos as ships scattered to avoid collision. "Amateur hour," Chen muttered, bringing her ship around in a turn that would have liquefied any normal human. The Defiant's inertial dampeners screamed in protest, but held. Her targeting system locked onto the nearest confused scout and sent two missiles racing toward its exposed ventral hull. The Zephyrian ship's point defense systems were good. They destroyed one missile. The second one punched through their shields and detonated against their engine section. The alien vessel went dark, drifting helplessly as its main power failed. Chen was already moving again, using the asteroid field like a three-dimensional maze. She rolled inverted and dove between two spinning rocks, her wingtips missing stone by meters. The pursuing Zephyrians, still trying to maintain some semblance of formation, couldn't match her insane maneuvers. Her comm system crackled with alien chatter, harsh clicking sounds that her computer translated in real time. Target is using irrational flight patterns, unable to establish firing solutions. Request tactical guidance. The response came from the main fleet, Admiral Kethvar's voice carrying what sounded like irritation. Maintain formation integrity. Execute Standard Pursuit Protocol 77 Alpha. Chen's eyebrows rose. Standard Pursuit Protocol? These aliens really didn't understand what they were dealing with. She pulled the Defiant into another impossible maneuver, this time a corkscrew spiral that brought her out directly above the reformed scout formation. She triggered her remaining missiles in a spread pattern, each one targeted at a different enemy vessel. The Zephyrians' point defense systems were designed to handle orderly attacks, not a chaotic barrage from an impossible angle. 6 scouts died in as many seconds, their hulls cracking like eggs as Chen's ordnance found its mark. The remaining 4 scouts finally broke formation, scattering in different directions. Chen picked the nearest one and ran it down like a hawk chasing a sparrow. Her plasma cannon spoke again, and another enemy contact vanished from her display. Computer ammunition status. Plasma cannon charge at 60%. Missile inventory 8 remaining. Chen nodded grimly. 3 scouts left from the original 12, but she was burning through her limited ammunition faster than she'd hoped. Still, the psychological effect had to be significant. In less than 10 minutes, one human pilot had destroyed 3/4 of their advanced screen. Her long-range sensors showed the main Zephyrian fleet adjusting course, angling toward her position. Admiral Kethvar had apparently decided to deal with the annoying human personally, rather than wait for his scouts to finish the job. Chen brought the Defiant around in a wide arc, keeping the asteroid field between her and the approaching armada. Her ship's AI chimed with a tactical update. "Captain, enemy fleet composition analysis complete. Primary threat assessment, 43. Dreadnought-class vessels, 116 heavy cruisers, 208 light cruisers, and 479 support vessels. Conservative estimate of total firepower, sufficient to sterilize planetary surface in 17 minutes. Yeah, well," Chen said, watching the massive alien ships resolve on her display like a swarm of metal locusts. They haven't met a pissed-off human pilot yet. She dove back toward the asteroids, the remaining 3 scouts converging on her position. Behind them, the vast bulk of the Zephyrian fleet followed like an avalanche of death and steel. Chen's ship bucked and rolled through the debris field, using every trick she'd learned in 20 years of flying. The aliens wanted a fight? She'd give them one they'd never forget. If she was going down, she was taking as many of them with her as possible. And if Admiral Kethvar thought 12 dead scouts was impressive, he was about to learn what one human could really do when cornered. The dance was just beginning. The main Zephyrian fleet spread across Chen's tactical display like a constellation of death, their formation so precise it could have been drafted by a computer, which, Chen realized with growing excitement, It probably had been. Computer, analyze enemy formation patterns. Look for networking protocols, communication delays, predictive movement algorithms. The Defiance AI worked for 30 seconds, an eternity in combat time, before responding. Analysis complete. Enemy vessels demonstrate synchronized maneuvering, consistent with real-time tactical networking. Estimated command delay, 0.7 seconds between fleet command and individual ship response. Chen's predatory smile widened. 0.7 of a second. In a dogfight, that might as well be forever. She rolled the Defiant into a steep dive toward the outer edge of the alien formation, where a squadron of heavy cruisers maintained perfect spacing like beads on an invisible string. The remaining 3 scouts from her earlier engagement were converging on her position, but they were maintaining formation discipline even in pursuit. Predictable. Her ship screamed between 2 asteroids, trailing superheated plasma as the Zephyrian cruisers opened fire. Chen watched the energy bolt streak past her cockpit, then pulled into a 90-degree climb that should have torn her ship apart. The Defiant groaned in protest, stress warnings cascading across her display, but held together through sheer human engineering stubbornness. Warning: hull stress approaching critical tolerances. Recommend reducing acceleration. Computer, what's the point of having tolerances if you never exceed them? Chen snap-rolled to port, dodging another volley of plasma fire. The pursuing scouts were gaining on her, but she was leading them exactly where she wanted them. She dove toward the cruiser formation again, this time coming in at an angle that positioned her directly between 2 of the massive ships. At the last possible second, she pulled into a vertical climb. The Zephyrian vessels, their targeting computers locked onto her previous position, fired simultaneously. Their plasma bolts, intended for her ship, instead tore into each other. The heavy cruiser on the left took a full broadside from its squadron mate, shields failing in a cascade of brilliant energy. The ship listed to starboard, atmosphere venting from multiple hull breaches. First rule of networking? Chen muttered, banking toward her next target. Never trust the network. The damaged cruiser was trying to rejoin the formation when Chen put 2 missiles into its exposed port side. The alien vessel broke apart in a spectacular explosion that lit up the asteroid field like a miniature sun. Her tactical display updated. 1 heavy cruiser destroyed, another damaged. But more importantly, she was starting to understand the enemy's fatal weakness. They moved like a single organism, each ship responding to central commands rather than individual initiative. It made them incredibly coordinated, but also incredibly predictable. Chen pulled the Defiant into another impossible maneuver, threading between 3 asteroids while the pursuing scouts tried desperately to match her trajectory. Their formation protocols were fighting against the need to navigate the debris field, and the resulting compromise satisfied neither requirement. She watched her rear display as the lead scout clipped another asteroid, this time more severely. The impact crumpled the ship's port wing and sent it tumbling into the path of its wingman. Both alien vessels collided in a tangle of metal and escaping atmosphere. And that's why we don't fly in parade formation through an obstacle course, Chen said, picking off the last scout with her plasma cannons. The main fleet was adjusting now, individual squadrons breaking off to engage her from multiple angles. But even their adaptations followed predictable patterns, each unit moving according to predetermined tactical doctrines. Chen studied the converging ships and saw opportunity written in their perfect geometry. She dove toward the center of the formation, directly at a cluster of light cruisers that were maneuvering to cut off her escape route. Her ship's proximity alarm screamed as enemy vessels surrounded her, their combined firepower enough to vaporize her ship in seconds. Instead of trying to break out, Chen did the last thing they expected. She stopped. The Defiant's engines cut to 0 thrust, and Chen deployed every piece of electronic countermeasures her ship possessed. Sensor ghosts bloomed across Zephyrian targeting systems as her ship vanished into a cloud of metallic chaff and electromagnetic interference. The alien cruisers, committed to their attack runs, fired into the sensor cloud. Their perfectly coordinated assault turned into a crossfire nightmare as ships on opposite sides of the formation shot at each other through the interference. 3 cruisers died in their own crossfire before their commanders realized what was happening. Chen used the confusion to slip away, her ship's stealth systems keeping her invisible until she was clear of the engagement zone. Behind her, the Zephyrian formation was in chaos, ships colliding as they tried to avoid friendly fire while maintaining their network protocols. Computer, damage assessment. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 7, atmospheric pressure holding. Plasma cannon efficiency down to 40% due to thermal stress. Missile inventory, 4 remaining. Chen felt the first trickle of concern. Her ship was dying around her, systems failing one by one under the impossible stresses of her flying. The Defiant had been pushed far beyond its design limits, held together now by little more than determination and creative engineering. But the Zephyrians were learning too. Admiral Kethvar's voice crackled across the comm channels, his translated words carrying a new edge of respect and frustration. All units, this human pilot employs chaos as a weapon, break standard formations, engage with individual initiative protocols. Chen's blood ran cold. If the aliens abandoned their rigid networking and started fighting as individuals, her advantage would evaporate. She had to keep them predictable, keep them following their protocols. She turned the Defiant toward the heart of the enemy fleet, where Admiral Kethvar's command ship hung like a metal moon among its escorts. If she could disrupt their communications, force them back into network dependence. Her ship shuddered as another system failed, this time the port maneuvering thruster. The Defiant was becoming harder to control, less responsive to her commands. But Chen had one advantage left. She was human, and humans excelled at turning desperation into opportunity. She aimed her dying ship at the most heavily defended target in the enemy fleet and pushed her failing engines to maximum burn. Time to see if Admiral Kethvar was ready for a truly desperate human. The Defiant limped through space toward Admiral Kethvar's command ship, trailing atmosphere and sparks from failing systems. Chen's tactical display showed nearly 400 Zephyrian vessels converging on her position, their formation patterns becoming increasingly erratic as individual commanders tried to implement chaos protocols they'd never been trained for. Computer, hull integrity status. Critical breach in engineering section. Life support failing on 3 decks. Estimated time to complete structural failure, 11 minutes, 47 seconds. Chen nodded grimly. Her ship was dying, but it might last just long enough. The Zephyrian command vessel loomed larger on her screen, a massive dreadnought 3 kilometers long, bristling with enough weaponry to crack a moon. It was surrounded by a protective screen of cruisers and destroyers, all maintaining perfect defensive positions despite Admiral Kethvar's orders for individual initiative. Interesting, Chen muttered, studying the formation. Old habits die hard, don't they? Her comm system crackled with an incoming transmission. Admiral Kethvar's angular features appeared on her screen, his 4 eyes fixed on her with what she was learning to recognize as Zephyrian respect. Human pilot, the Admiral said, his translated words carrying undertones of grudging admiration. You have fought with remarkable unpredictability. My tactical analysis algorithms cannot model your behavior patterns. You do not fight like a rational being. Chen's damaged ship bucked as another system failed, this time the artificial gravity. She floated against her restraints, blood from a dozen small cuts drifting in crimson spheres around the cockpit. Rationality is overrated, Admiral. Sometimes crazy is all you've got. Indeed. I have studied your species since this engagement began. You appear to be individually intelligent yet collectively insane. You take risks that should result in extinction, yet somehow survive through sheer stubbornness, I believe your word is. That's us. Too stupid to quit, too mean to die. Chen's hands moved across her failing controls, bringing her last 2 missiles online. I'm guessing you didn't call to discuss human psychology. Kethvar's mandibles clicked in that alien equivalent of laughter. I called to offer terms. Surrender now, and I will ensure your death is swift. You have cost me nearly 100 ships, human. I would prefer to end this before you cost me more. Chen looked at her tactical display. The Zephyrian fleet had, indeed, taken massive casualties, not from her weapons alone, but from their own friendly fire incidents and collisions caused by her chaotic tactics. Ships that had relied on network coordination for centuries were struggling to adapt to independent operation. 100 ships? She whistled softly. Not bad for one crazy human and a dying interceptor. Your ship's power signature is failing. Your weapons are nearly depleted. What can one pilot possibly accomplish against 400 vessels? Chen studied the command ship's defensive formation one more time, noting the slight gaps in coverage, the predictable rotation patterns of the escort vessels. Even trying to be unpredictable, they couldn't fully abandon their ingrained tactical doctrines. Admiral, you want to know what one human pilot can accomplish? She armed her last 2 missiles and targeted the command ship's massive communication array. Let me show you. She cut the transmission and slammed her failing engines to maximum emergency power. The Defiant leaped forward like a wounded animal, making one final desperate charge. Alarms screamed throughout the ship as systems overloaded, but Chen ignored them all. She had one shot at this. The escort vessels opened fire, plasma bolts and missile trails converging on her position. Chen threw her ship into a spiraling dive that brought her beneath the defensive screen, her hull screaming as it absorbed near miss after near miss. Her starboard engine exploded, sending the Defiant into an uncontrolled spin. She used the spin, rolling with it instead of fighting it, presenting a constantly shifting target to the enemy gunners. Pieces of her ship were flying off now. Hull, plating, sensor arrays, anything not welded down. The Defiant was coming apart around her, but it was still flying. Somehow. Chen fired her last 2 missiles at point-blank range, watching them streak toward the command ship's communication array. The Zephyrian point defense systems tracked them, destroying 1 missile but missing the second in the chaos of her ship's disintegration. The missile struck the massive antenna array dead center, detonating in a brilliant flash that severed primary communications throughout the fleet. But Chen wasn't done. As her ship continued its death spiral toward the command vessel, she made a decision that would have seemed insane to any rational being. She didn't eject. Instead, she aimed the Defiant's wreckage directly at the backup communication array. Computer, all remaining power to forward shields, emergency collision protocol. Captain, this action will result in certain death. Recommend immediate ejection. Negative, we're not done yet. The dying interceptor slammed into Admiral Kethavar's command ship like a meteor, its forward shields lasting just long enough to punch through the dreadnought's defensive barriers. The Defiant buried itself 30 meters deep in the alien vessel's hull, its reactor core going critical in a contained explosion that severed the secondary communication grid. In the explosion's aftermath, Chen found herself floating in her survival pod, automatically ejected by the ship's emergency systems in the final microseconds before impact. The Defiant was gone, nothing left but twisted metal and cooling plasma, but it had accomplished its mission. Across the Zephyrian fleet, 400 warships suddenly found themselves alone in the dark. The network that had coordinated their movements for over 1,000 years was silent. Individual captains, trained their entire careers to follow. Central commands struggled to function independently. Ships began firing on each other almost immediately, their IFF systems confused by the communication breakdown. Formations dissolved into chaos as vessels drifted out of position, their crews unsure whether to maintain their posts or seek new orders that would never come. Chen watched through her pod's small viewport as the alien armada began tearing itself apart. Admiral Kethavar's command ship was signaling frantically, trying to restore communications, but the damage was too severe. The network was down, and with it, the fleet's ability to function as a coordinated force. Her comm system crackled with a transmission on emergency frequencies. Admiral Kethavar himself, broadcasting from his crippled command ship. Human pilot, Sarah Chen, you have done something I believed impossible. You have turned our greatest strength into our greatest weakness. How? Chen smiled, blood still floating around her head in the pod's zero gravity. Admiral, your people fight like machines, perfectly coordinated, absolutely predictable, but humans? She looked out at the chaos consuming the alien fleet. We fight like the universe is trying to kill us because it usually is. Through her viewport, she could see more Zephyrian ships colliding, their crews unable to coordinate without their precious network. The unstoppable armada was becoming an out-of-control mob. And somewhere in the distance, New Haven's evacuation. Transports were finally launching, carrying 50,000 civilians to safety. One human pilot hadn't just bought them time. She'd bought them a miracle. Chen's survival pod tumbled slowly through space, its emergency beacon painting her location in electronic whispers that somehow seemed deafeningly loud after the chaos of combat. Through the small viewport, she watched the Zephyrian fleet tear itself apart in a spectacular display of friendly fire and navigational disasters. A heavy cruiser, trying to re-establish formation with its squadron, collided with a destroyer that had drifted out of position. Both ships exploded in a cascade of venting atmosphere and molten metal. Nearby vessels, panicking without central coordination, opened fire on anything that moved unexpectedly. Within minutes, a dozen more ships died to their own weapons. Chen's pod's communication system crackled with intercepted Zephyrian transmissions, her computer translating the alien voices in real time. The panic was palpable. Command vessel unresponsive, requesting tactical guidance. Unknown contacts on bearing 27 Mark 6, engaging. Negative. Those are friendly vessels. Cease fire. Unable to confirm friend or foe. Network down. Operating on individual protocols. The chaos was spreading like a virus through the fleet. Centuries of relying on networked coordination had left the Zephyrian crews psychologically dependent on central command. Without their digital umbilical cord, they were lost children firing at shadows. But Chen's celebration was short-lived. Through the carnage, she spotted Admiral Kethvar's command ship deploying what looked like repair drones toward the damaged communication arrays. The massive dreadnought was also extending physical communication cables to nearby escort vessels. Emergency. Hardline connections that would allow limited coordination. Clever bastard, Chen muttered. She watched as the Admiral's small formation of directly connected ships began moving with renewed purpose, cutting through the chaos to rally scattered units. You're adapting faster than I hoped. Her pod's long-range sensors painted a grim picture. Despite the friendly fire incidents, nearly 200 Zephyrian vessels remained functional. Admiral Kethvar was slowly but steadily re-establishing control, using runners and courier ships to relay orders when electronic communication failed. Worse, the surviving alien ships were beginning to converge on New Haven itself. The evacuation was still hours from completion, and 200 warships were more than enough to sterilize the planet's surface. Chen's distress beacon had been broadcasting for 20 minutes when her sensors detected incoming ships. Her heart sank as she identified them. Not human rescuers, but a Zephyrian patrol squadron that had broken off from the main chaos to investigate her pod. 3 alien destroyers approached with predatory grace, their weapons trained on her helpless. Podern Chen's hand moved instinctively toward her sidearm, a laughably inadequate response to 3 warships. But humans were nothing if not stubborn in the face of impossible odds. Her comm system activated with an incoming transmission from the lead destroyer. The alien captain's face appeared on her screen, younger than Admiral Kethvar with visible scarring across his chitinous features. Human pilot, you are now prisoner of the Zephyrian Dominion. Prepare for boarding and interrogation. Captain, Chen said calmly, I'm afraid I'm going to have to decline that generous offer. The alien's mandibles clicked in confusion. You misunderstand. You have no choice in this matter. You are defenseless. Chen smiled, the expression all teeth and dark humor. That's where you're wrong. See, I've got something you don't have. And what is that? Friends. The Zephyrian captain was still processing her words when the first human ship dropped out of hyperspace, barely 1,000 kilometers away. Then another. And another. Chen's tactical display lit up with friendly contacts, cargo haulers, mining, ships, civilian transports, even a few obsolete patrol craft. Nothing that should have been able to challenge a destroyer, let alone 3 of them. But they kept coming. A dozen ships, then 20, then 30. Her comm system exploded with chatter on human emergency frequencies. "This is Captain Martinez, cargo hauler Lucky Strike. We're here for extraction. Mining vessel Rock Crusher standing. By someone say you need a hand with some aliens?" Civilian transport New Dawn reporting. "We've got medical facilities if anyone's hurt." Chen's eyes widened as she realized what was happening. These weren't military vessels responding to a distress call. They were civilians, cargo pilots and miners and transport crews who had been monitoring her earlier transmissions. They'd heard her fighting impossible odds to protect New Haven, and they'd come to help. The Zephyrian captain was clearly as stunned as Chen. "These are non-combatant vessels. They pose no threat to our mission." "Captain," Chen broadcast on all frequencies, "you're about to learn something important about humans. We don't really have non-combatants." The first human ship to engage was the Rock Crusher, a massive asteroid mining vessel designed to crack open rocks the size of city blocks. Its mining charges weren't military weapons, but they packed enough explosive power to seriously inconvenience a destroyer. Captain Torres, the mining ship's commander, dove straight at the nearest Zephyrian vessel like a man possessed. "For New Haven!" he roared over the comm, launching a spread of mining charges that detonated against the alien ship's shields in brilliant flashes. The destroyer's shields held, but barely, and suddenly the other human vessels were moving, each one attacking with whatever makeshift weapons they could deploy. Cargo haulers rammed enemy ships with their reinforced hulls. Transport vessels launched improvised missiles built from emergency, flares and medical supplies. Even the smallest civilian craft joined the fight, their crews displaying the kind of desperate courage that had carried humanity to the stars. The Zephyrian destroyers, designed to fight military vessels with predictable tactics and standardized weapons, found themselves facing an enemy that defied all conventional logic. How do you defend against a cargo ship that uses its loading crane as a weapon? How do you target a transport that's using medical oxygen as an improvised explosive? One destroyer died when the cargo hauler Big Betty rammed it at full speed. Her captain laughing maniacally over the comm as both ships exploded in a spectacular fireball. The second destroyer fell to a coordinated assault by 6 mining vessels, their combined firepower overwhelming its defensive systems. The third destroyer tried to retreat, but found its path blocked by the transport New Dawn. The civilian ship was hopelessly outgunned, but its captain, a grandmother named Rosa Santos, had apparently decided that running wasn't an option. "This is for my grandchildren," she said calmly, ramming her ship into the destroyer's engine section. Chen watched the battle unfold around her survival pod with tears streaming down her face. These weren't soldiers. They were ordinary people, cargo pilots and miners and transport crews, who had heard about one pilot's desperate stand and decided they couldn't sit idly by while others fought for their survival. The surviving human vessels converged on her pod, and Chen found herself pulled aboard the Lucky Strike by Captain Martinez, a grizzled cargo hauler with kind eyes and steady hands. "Ma'am," he said as the ship's medical officer checked her injuries, "we monitored your transmissions. That was some flying you did out there." Chen looked at the mixed group of civilians crowding the ship's cramped bridge, miners still covered in asteroid dust, transport captains who should have been carrying passengers instead of joining a battle, cargo haulers who had abandoned profitable runs to answer a stranger's distress call. "Why?" she asked. "Why did you come? This isn't your fight." Captain Martinez exchanged glances with the other civilians. "Ma'am, with respect, you're wrong about that. When someone's fighting to protect innocent people, that makes it everyone's fight. That's what being human means." Through the bridge viewports, Chen could see the remaining Zephyrian fleet regrouping around Admiral Kethvar's command ship. Nearly 200 vessels still survived, and they were moving toward New Haven with renewed determination. But now, they wouldn't be facing just one desperate pilot and a dying interceptor. They'd be facing something far more dangerous. Ordinary humans who had decided enough was enough. The real fight was just beginning. The bridge of the Lucky Strike hummed with desperate activity as Captain Martinez coordinated the ragtag human fleet. 27 civilian vessels remained operational, their crews patching hull breaches with emergency foam and jury rigging, weapons from mining equipment and industrial tools. Chen stood at the navigation console, her injuries bandaged but her mind sharp as she studied the tactical situation. Admiral Kethavar had restored limited coordination to his surviving fleet, 196 vessels still heading directly toward New Haven. The evacuation transports were barely halfway through loading civilians, and even at maximum burn, they'd never outrun Zephyrian warships. "Captain Martinez," Chen said, her voice carrying across the bridge, "patch me through to all human vessels. Emergency broadcast frequency." "You're live, Captain Chen." Chen keyed the comm, looking out at the approaching alien armada. "This is Captain Sarah Chen to all human vessels. I know you came out here to rescue one pilot, but the situation has changed. Those ships are heading straight for New Haven, and there are 50,000 people down there who can't defend themselves." She paused, watching distant explosions as the Zephyrian fleet finished destroying the last of their own damaged vessels. Cold, efficiency that made her skin crawl. "I won't lie to you. We're looking at 200 enemy warships with everything from our mining charges to medical supplies. By every rational calculation we should run, but..." Her voice hardened with determination. "I've learned something today about what happens when humans decide rational isn't good enough." Captain Torres from the Rock Crusher came on the channel first. "Ma'am, speaking for my crew, we didn't come this far to watch children get murdered by alien bastards. What's the plan?" One by one, the other civilian captains voiced their agreement. Transport crews who should have been carrying passengers. Cargo haulers who should have been worried about their insurance premiums. Miners who should have been thinking about their families back home. Instead, they were volunteering to fight a fleet. Chen felt something shift inside her chest, a mixture of pride and heartbreak that threatened to overwhelm her. "All right, listen up. The Zephyrians have one weakness we can exploit. They still think in terms of military doctrine, even after everything we've thrown at them. They expect us to either run or make a conventional attack." She called up a tactical display on the main screen. "We're going to do neither. Captain Santos, how much medical oxygen do your transport ships carry?" Rosa Santos, now commanding. The New Dawn sister ship Second Chance came on the channel. "Each transport carries enough compressed oxygen for 1,000 passengers on a month-long journey." "Why?" "Because compressed oxygen makes an excellent explosive when mixed with the right catalyst." "Mining ships, what's your payload status?" Captain Torres chuckled grimly. "We've got enough shaped charges to crack a small moon, but our range is limited. We'd have to get damn close to use them effectively." "Perfect. Cargo haulers, your ships have the strongest hulls and the most maneuverable loading systems. You're going to be our cavalry." Chen's plan was taking shape, brilliant and insane in equal measure. "We're going to hit them with everything at once, from every direction, using tactics so chaotic they can't possibly prepare for them." Admiral Kethavar's voice suddenly crackled across their communications, his words translated with mechanical precision. "Human vessels, this is Fleet Admiral Kethavar of the Zephyrian Dominion. You are ordered to withdraw immediately. You are non-combatant vessels engaging military targets, a violation of interstellar warfare conventions." Chen took the transmission. "Admiral, this is Captain Chen. Funny thing about humans, we've never been very good at following other people's rules." "Captain Chen, you survived the destruction of your vessel. Impressive. But surely even you can see the futility of this situation. 27 civilian ships against nearly 200 warships?" Chen looked around the bridge at the faces of the civilian crew, miners with calloused hands, transport pilots with worry lines from years of keeping passengers safe, cargo haulers who'd spent their careers moving goods between the stars. None of them were soldiers, but every one of them had chosen to be here. "Admiral, let me tell you what I see. I see humans who heard about a fight for something that mattered and decided they couldn't stay home. I see people who understand that sometimes you don't fight because you can win, you fight because it's right." She cut the transmission and turned to Captain Martinez. "All ships, execute attack pattern. Hell, we'll call it controlled chaos. Everyone pick a target and hit them with whatever you've got. Make it random, make it unpredictable, and make it count. The human fleet scattered like leaves in a hurricane, each ship taking a different approach vector toward the alien armada. The rock crusher led a group of mining vessels in a head-on assault, their industrial lasers and explosive charges turning the void into a light show. Transport ships came in from above and below, venting compressed oxygen and medical supplies that detonated like impromptu cluster bombs when hit by weapons fire. Cargo haulers used their loading cranes as kinetic weapons, grabbing chunks of asteroid debris and hurling them at enemy ships with surprising accuracy. The Big Betty's sister ship, Heavy Lifter, managed to grab an entire disabled Zephyrian fighter and use it as a club against a destroyer. The Zephyrian formation, already stressed by hours of chaos and confusion, began to unravel completely. Ships collided as they tried to avoid the humans' seemingly suicidal attacks. Point defense systems designed to handle orderly missile volleys couldn't track improvised weapons made from medical equipment and mining tools. Chen watched from the Lucky Strike's bridge as Captain Torres rammed the rock crusher directly into the shields of a Zephyrian heavy cruiser. The mining ship's hull cracked like an egg, but its cargo of industrial explosives detonated inside the alien vessel's defensive grid. Both ships vanished in a ball of superheated plasma. "Torres!" Chen yelled, but there was no response. The gruff mining captain and his crew were gone, taking 50 alien soldiers with them. All across the battlefield, similar sacrifices played out. The transport New Dawn 2 used its entire passenger oxygen supply as a massive explosive, crippling 3 enemy destroyers before its hull finally gave way. Cargo hauler Steady Eddie managed to tangle its loading cables around a cruiser's weapon arrays, rendering the larger ship helpless before a coordinated attack by 2 mining vessels finished it off. The human fleet was dying, but they were taking the aliens with them. For every civilian ship destroyed, 2 or 3 Zephyrian vessels fell to their chaotic, impossible tactics. Admiral Kethvar's command ship pushed through the melee, its massive bulk heading directly for New Haven. Chen could see evacuation transports still launching from the planet's surface. Too slow, too late. "Captain Martinez," she said quietly, "get me a suit and a thruster pack." "Ma'am, I'm going EVA. There's one more thing I can try." Martinez stared at her. "Captain, that's suicide. You'd be going out there with nothing but a sidearm and a bad attitude." Chen smiled, the expression fierce and determined. "Captain, you just described the entire human species." She suited up quickly, checking her thruster pack and emergency oxygen supply. Through the Lucky Strike's airlock, she could see Admiral Kethvar's command ship growing larger, its weapon ports glowing with deadly energy. But she could also see something else. Dozens of survival pods and emergency beacons scattered throughout the battle zone. Human crews who had ejected from their dying ships, drifting helplessly, but still alive. Chen opened her comm to broadcast on all emergency frequencies, knowing that every human in the system would hear her words. "This is Captain Sarah Chen to all human survivors. I know some of you are thinking this is over, that we lost, but look around you." Her voice carried across space to every survival pod, every damaged ship, every evacuation transport still struggling to escape the planet. "Look at what we accomplished today. 27 civilian ships just went toe-to-toe with a fleet that could conquer worlds. We didn't win because we had better ships or superior numbers. We won because when it mattered, when people needed protecting, ordinary humans decided they were going to do something extraordinary." She activated her thruster pack and launched herself toward Admiral Kethvar's command ship, a single figure in a vacuum suit armed with nothing but determination. "Admiral Kethvar," she broadcast on all frequencies, "you wanted to understand humans? Here's your lesson. We fight like the universe is trying to kill us, because it usually is. That's what made us strong enough to reach for the stars. That's what makes us dangerous enough to defend them." The massive alien dreadnought loomed ahead of her, its point defense systems tracking her approach. Chen's suit was already taking hits from automated laser batteries, her life support systems failing one by one. But behind her, something impossible was happening. The scattered human survivors, crews in life pods, damaged ships that should have been fleeing, were turning back toward the fight. Captain Martinez brought the Lucky Strike around for another attack run. The few remaining mining ships formed up for one final charge. They were following her lead, refusing to give up. Even when defeat seemed certain,